following the news, Tiger Woods got into a serious car accident in California a couple of hours ago. So let's keep him in our prayers that God will keep him alive. So I hope you all are doing well. You are doing well. So good to see you all. I will start in the next 3 minutes, and we'll start our new lesson today, which is we are going to China. All right, how are you, Tania? You doing well?
On his phone, the iPhone 11.
Hello, Jasmine, how are you?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, let's begin. Good afternoon again, and welcome to our 2:30 class. I thank you all for making the effort to come to class today. So we are going to China. We are in ancient China. On Saturday, I posted a PowerPoint for you all on Blackboard. It is there. We will look at it in a while. But before we go to that, I want to introduce you to some of the objectives. You know, one of the things I like to study is geography and location. So we go examine the geography of ancient China. We'll find out about our early civilization in China. And so this is China here. And we know like Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, and India, China is a river civilization, right? So we can establish that ancient China was one of the river civilizations. Anyone, name me another river civilization. Anyone? I don't want to be calling names, so the floor is open. Anyone can answer. Name me another river. Huh?
Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia. Another one.
Egypt from Nile.
Egypt, and another one. We have India, right? So we now meet in China. So like those river civilizations, we are seeing two rivers in China. The Honghe, called the Yellow River, and the Yangtze. And in some spelling, so we will have the two rivers, and in some books, you will see the Yangtze spelled like Y-A-N-G-Z-T-E, the Yangtze. It is also spelled like this. So anyway you spell it, it will be correct. So two rivers, right? So where did we see two rivers? Where did we see two rivers? Anyone can answer. Where did we see two rivers and name the rivers? The two rivers.
Egypt.
Egypt, where what? No, two rivers, two. Where did we see two rivers?
Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia, and what were those rivers? Come on, the Tigris and the Euphrates. And where again did we see two rivers? Ancient India, right? The Indus and the Ganges, right? Egypt had one, but two tributaries. Now we are seeing ancient China has two. The Honghe, this is a Chinese name, but we call it the Yellow River, and we'll understand why the water is yellow as we get there. And the Yangtze. So two rivers. So it's two rivers. Okay, sorry about that. North China, well, in terms of climate and landforms, North China Plain is made up of soil deposits from the Hong River. And because of this, China is protected by mountains, desert, jungles, and other geographic features that have isolated Chinese culture. And that made China believe that they are the best kingdom of the world. They saw themselves as the middle kingdom. In other words, no one else existed but China. And the Chinese have that belief. Asia, and even among the world, that they see themselves as superior to others. Because the only nation that really conquered China was the Japanese, and that came years after, centuries after. Oh, so we come into the, why is this yellow? It is yellow. So the Honghe River is the second largest river in China. It is yellow due to the yellow loss. Less. This is the less is winds blown from the desert onto, when the breeze blow, it brings that dust onto the river. And that is why it is called Yellow River. It is also called, the Honghe is also called the River of Sorrow, because it claims the lives of thousands of Chinese every year because of flooding. All right? So again, in your textbook, on page 75 and page 76, you will find important geographical information on ancient China. or in terms of what we just discussed here, in terms of geography. So I just wanted you to note that, right? So, and then in terms of flooding, they built dikes. Come to the Shang Dynasty, which I posted it on Blackboard. So let's go. Let me take you to the let me go back to some more geography on this slide here. You'll see the Hong-He, it is pronounced Hong-He, Aka Yellow River. It stretches across China, carrying rich yellow silt clear to the Pacific Ocean. And here the Changjiang or the Yangtze, it is longer than the Hong-He. It goes across central China to the Yellow Sea. And it's an area that produces a lot of food because of the fertility of the soil. So only 10% of China is suitable for farming. Mostly mountains and deserts. And this creates barriers, and it kept China isolated. Right, so that's some geography. So the two rivers, right, the Yellow River, the Hong-He, and the Yangtze. The Chinese call it, these are the Chinese names, Chongjiang, Hong-He or Hong-Hu, Aka Yellow River. So this name and this name is the same. If this was an in-class exact class, I would have given a quiz and asked you true or false. The Yellow River is called the Yangtze River. True or false? Class, is it true or false? The Yellow River is called the Yangtze River. True or false?
False.
It's false. Because normally when I'm doing it, if this was an in-class, you would have 4 quizzes, true and false. From after we do a couple of chapters, quiz 1 will be based on chapters 1, 2, and 3, and you'll have true, false. So ancient China. Let's see. All right, so this is some pronunciation. Hong-He, Hong-He, Shang, Shong, Shong. This word here, the Shu, Jo. This is pronounced Jo. Some people pronounce it as Shu also, S-H-O-E, the Shu. Lois, you'll see this term, it means less. This is what creates the Yellow River, the dust from the desert. Henan, this is Henan. This is pronounced Wei, and the kin is pronounced Shin. Right? This is English pronunciation. This is the Chinese. So we'll talk about the one I posted on the Shang. We'll talk about the Shang. This is the earliest dynasty in ancient China, the Shang. So before the establishment of the Shang dynasty, you had the Neolithic age, where the early Chinese engaged in pottery, and the Chinese are still known for this because they make Chinese vases, very expensive, out of porcelain. Chinese vases. And so these are the early several, before the establishment of the Shang dynasty. Some scholars said that this dynasty existed before, but there are few records to document it. So this is why we start from the Shang, because there are more records to document. So the two main dynasties in this early part of China is the Shang and the Zhou, or the Shu. The Shang and the Shu. We have the two early civilizations, the Shang and the Shu, called the Zhou. So the Shang dynasty, around 760 BC, the Shang gained control of northern China and built their first cities. And they produced China's writing system. So what is a dynasty? A series of rulers from a family. That's a dynasty. This is how we describe a dynasty or a dynasty. A series of rulers, right? So the Shang, now other groups are living there. The Shu is also living there, but the Shang and the dynasty takes control of that part of China. I want to get give me. All right, yeah. So the Shang dynasty and the Yellow River, right? China, the Yellow River. And we talk about why is the river yellow? Why is it yellow? Why? Because the answer is because of the less. This is desert, and when the wind blows, it takes the dust into the river. This is pronounced less. So these were the early peoples who lived in the region before the Shang took power. You had the Yangshuo and the Longshan, two groups, right? Notice these people hunted, they reared animals, they farmed, they engaged in irrigation, and they painted pottery. These people reared animals, they farmed, they engaged in irrigation, made pottery from wheels. So they were using not their hands, but wheels to make pottery. So they advanced. And this is the region where they live. This is the Longshan and the, right? Both civilization clinged to the Yellow River. And these are Chinese vases, right? They cultivated millet, rice, turnips, yams, cabbage, and other vegetables. And they domesticated pigs, chickens, sheep, goats, cattle, and dogs. And this is another Chinese vase. This is made out of copper. So in this, we are in the copper age. This is copper. So the Chinese know how do we get copper? We mine tin and iron ore, and we make it into copper. Right? You have tin and iron ore. That is how you turn it into copper. So the Chinese are into the copper age. And you're not only making vases, you can take copper, see? You're taking it and make musical instruments, murals, copper bells, etc. So the first dynasty, it will be the Shang. So why is China isolated? Why is China hard to penetrate? One, because of the Pacific Ocean to the east, because of the Taklamakan Desert to the west, the Gobi Desert to the north, and the Himalaya mountains that separates China from India to the south. So it is difficult. Other nations have problems in invading China because of those nations. And the Chinese, the Shang, and then the Zhou will focus their civilization on rivers. And the focus will be on the Yellow River or the Honghe. Because of the flood, we saw fertile soil. We saw fertile soil where? In Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. But the floods wiped away many villages and people. And the Chinese will call the Yellow River the river of great sorrow. The river of great sorrow. So these here, you see these places here in black. These are Shang cities on the river, very close to the river. And we'll come back to those names. And this is a rendering of an artist rendition of one of AO, right? And this is the first Shang government. So like all other civilizations, here we are seeing government, right? There's government. There's a government and there's a leader. The leader in China is called the emperor. Notice he is not, we call him emperor. He's called an emperor, not a pharaoh, not a king, right? But an emperor. So this is the emperor, the first emperor called Tiang. Tiang. How do we rule in China? So there's a philosophy of government. There's a philosophy of government, and in ancient China they call it the mandate of heaven. I will not explain it right now. I will explain it when we are doing the Shu dynasty in detail, right? Because the mandate of heaven said, all right, this is called the dynastic cycle. right? The Chinese believe that a government, all right, let me clarify it for you here. This is how I paraphrase it. So the philosophy said this: the early Chinese believed that the government obtained its mandate. The early Chinese, let me put it, people believed that the government obtained its mandate to govern from their gods. Once the rulers practiced good governance and ensured that the people were protected, that justice was performed, the rulers maintained the right to rule. However, once they became corrupt and practiced injustice, other people who were oppressed claimed that they broke the mandate and they had the right to. So what will, let's see, once this occurred, another dynasty came. Hence it is called the dynastic cycle. So we'll be calling the dynastic cycle. Again, this is a cycle. So we have you know, you'll follow, right? And it keeps it explains the rise, decline, and replacement of dynasties. Again, if you want to know about that, let's go to the evidence. Let's go to the evidence and see if we can find more research on it. Simply put, there were 4 principles of the mandate. Heaven grants the emperor the right to rule. Since there's only one heaven, there can only be one emperor at a given time. The emperor of virtue determines his right to rule, and no one dynasty has a permanent right to rule. And you'll see the Shu will use the idea of the mandate of heaven. We'll talk about that to overthrow the Shah. So these are the 4 principles. When you read this article, if you go to this website, you'll see the 4 principles of the mandate. Heaven, the gods gave them the right to rule. And since there's only one heaven, there can only be one emperor at a given time. So the emperor's virtue determines his right to rule. In other words, the emperor should not become corrupt. The emperor should practice good governance, ensure that justice is done. If the emperor is not doing these things, then other groups will say, you know what, we have the right to overthrow the emperor and form a new dynasty. And then this is why we call it this is why we call it the dynastic cycle. Right? It's a cycle. Right? Once the emperor practices virtue, virtue means that the emperor is a good emperor. He honors justice. He is not corrupt. He is fair and all these things. That is virtue. But once virtue is not being practiced, another group people will say that they will be overthrown. So we can establish that the Shang ruled other ethnic groups such as the Shu. So the Shu were under control. The Shu was dominated, the Shang dominated the Shu people. So over time, we'll see that the Shu will use the mandate of heaven to overthrow the Shang. Any questions on that? So let's go back to the Shang. So the Shang emperors were seen as intermediaries between the D, their ancestors, and humankind. The D is their God. So we can establish that the emperor, there's a relationship between government and religion. So the emperor made government and religious decisions. Where did we see that? Where did we see that happening? Which civilization where the ruler made government and religious decisions? Anyone? with civilization. We saw that in ancient Egypt, where the Pharaoh was the leader of the government and the Pharaoh was the leader of the religion. So we saw that. So now we are seeing it again in ancient China, where the leader makes political and religious decisions, right? So if you go back to the slide, the emperor is seen as an intermediary between the people and the gods, and he made government decisions and he led the religious rituals. He supervised dances designed to end droughts and had dancers born to please the gods, so they practiced human sacrifice. So here we are seeing for the first time, well, not for the first time, because in other civilization, human sacrifices were performed. Human sacrifice. So like ancient Egypt, India, Mesopotamia, we are seeing government intertwined with religion. And also in ancient China, the classes and social hierarchy. How do we prove that? Let's go again. If you want to say social class in ancient China. So if you look at it from here, if you go to this website, ancient China, you'll see it here. Look at this. The king, right? You had farmers, these were the middle class, and these were the bottom of the social ladder. So here you have the emperor, the nobles, the shy class, the non-class farmers, the gong class, the shang class, and slaves. So you can, if you want more information on social structure, go to this website here, Ancient China Life and History Week. So you can study this website, right? So the emperor, this is the emperor. Then you have the shy class, the nobles. Then the non-class, the peasant farmers, the gong class, artisans, the shang class, and the at bottom of it, you have slaves. So that is one of them. If you want to go to and some of these diagrams will give you right, so you can study that. Okay. So here we have the emperor and the nobles, right? The nobles, this is how it operated. The emperor, this I'll show you, let me demonstrate it for you. So when we think about social class or social hierarchy, the emperor owned all the lands. He owned all the lands, right? And what in return, what he will do, he owned all the lands and will give the nobles rights to the lands. So here now, under the emperor, we have nobles. So the nobles are called vassals. In other words, they owe their allegiance to the emperor. Most likely, the nobles will be the emperor's family. They are family members, right? Most likely, they are family members, right? In return, the nobles employed the peasants. Right? They employ the peasants. So the peasants what? Grew all the food. So the peasants will take the food and give it to the nobles, and the nobles in turn will take the food and give it to the emperor, give some to the emperor. So the peasants grow the food, give it to the nobles will take some of that food and give it to the emperor. In times of war, the peasants, the nobles, so in times of war, the nobles mobilize the peasants to fight on behalf. And I'll add this, and you'll read it in your book. This system, and we will meet it again, is called feudalism. That is what it is called. Feudalism. Questions so far? If I'm going too fast, let me know. I can slow down and go right back to the beginning. How did the elites live? Right? So you have the Shang elite culture. The nobility, they believed in which today we'll call this witchcraft. They will go to their shamans, their priests, and their oracles, who will try to summon the dead to speak to them. Today we'll call this witchcraft. Sorry. And the Shang artists, they produce these items for the nobles. Remember, in ancient China, the nobility did not work. They did not work. Other people worked and they lived off the wealth. So these were the lesser occupations in ancient China. Right, the lesser we will come to scholars and when we studying Confucius, merchants, craftsmen, farmers, and slaves. These are the nobles here. The nobility, lesser people, right? Like ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, the Chinese developed writing and they used pictograms. And they wrote their writing on oracle boards. Pictograms. And this is what it looked like. Imagine this. To be literate in ancient China, you have to know 1,000 words. So if you did not know 1,000 characters, you consider to be illiterate. And to be a scholar, you have to know 10 times the amount, 10,000 characters. So here I've established writing. Pictogram, written, I can add oracle. Chinese had a technology. They used bronze technology, and this is what we call metallurgy. Metallurgy means smelting iron and bronze, the smelting. So they knew of how to smelt. In other words, metallurgy, and they used it to make what? In other words, how do we get bronze? There's tin and iron ore. These are raw materials. Or we call them natural resources. And so we can turn tin and iron ore into bronze. And from bronze, we can make weapons and ceremonial artifacts for our religion. This is what the Chinese did. They turned, you see what they did? They turned bronze into art, weapons, and tools. So the Shang was in the Bronze Age. And these are some of the objects, their religious objects that it used bronze to make. These are also some of their objects from bronze. When the emperor died, this is they found this grave. When the emperor died, they buried them with all their